during it, while she's trying to talk to Darlene, you get like the most typical cartoon noise coming from the other room. Hey, yo, and welcome everyone to episode 50 of the S1E1 podcast, where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if that's a show that we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Roseanne. Roseanne's gone 10 seasons with 230 episodes on ABC. Today we're talking about episode 1, Life and Stuff, which originally aired October 18th, 1988. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, Ferg, Nick, Joe, and not Gordo, because he had better things to do. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
I'm on Ambien.
Becky's on birth control and junk.
All right, guys, so before we even get into it, happy episode 50.
Woo woo! Woo! We did it.
50 years old.
It's like...
Remember that from SNL from the 90s? Like the worst recurring sketch of all time. I'm 50 years old.
So yeah, I mean, we'll talk more because we're going to hit our anniversary in a few more weeks. But for 50, it's like, it's weird because in a lot of ways, it feels like time's flown right by and that this came out of nowhere. And in other ways, I feel like we've been doing this forever.
Yes.
At least tonight it feels that way.
Tonight, yeah. Behind the curtains, yeah. It took us a little while to get going today, but...
Severe technical difficulties.
But we're here now and we're ready to go. And yeah, Roseanne. So Roseanne is a pretty big show. I think it's kind of nice to do some of these bigger shows when we have landmark episodes like this. I can't help but assume that you've all watched Roseanne at some point.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I actually have the box set of the entire original series.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of these on DVD too. I know when we, like, this is like 10, 15 years ago or whatever. But like when you'd move into a new apartment and you couldn't get internet. So you'd just like, what do we do for like 3 days? And we just watched all of Roseanne for like an entire weekend.
Joe, in 2022, you moved into a house and you can't get internet. You better take those DVDs out.
Hey, leave the moose alone. He's doing his best work right now.
They're antlers, not antennas.
Oh, shucks. But yeah, and Ferg, you kind of touched on it by saying the original series run. Yeah, so originally 9 seasons, and then 20-something years later, the show came back, and they did a 10th season, which was like another 9 episodes. So originally like 9 seasons, about 221 episodes, and then we came back in 2018 with that last season. Ferg touched on it at the beginning, but we won't get too into it. Roseanne no longer part of the show, Roseanne. So moving forward. So moving forward, yeah, the Connors now exists in television, and they're 2 or 3 seasons deep themselves now. And I think technically, could we do an episode of the Connors?
I was going to ask the same thing. Is that a spinoff or is that a continuation?
Either way, though, it's different, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be like doing All in the Family and Archie Bunker's Place. It's sort of the same, but it's different enough.
Yeah. So maybe you'll see a Connors episode from us one day.
Yeah, when we run out of shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows we still need to do.
I will say, though, I've watched all of, when Roseanne came back, we watched all of it, and we've watched every episode of The Connors as well, so it's kind of weird to be like, this show started in 87, and we're watching it as a very little kid, and now in 2022, we're still watching the same characters.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I watch The Connors every week. I've watched every episode since it's come out. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it does not feel like a different show because literally it goes from like the last episode of the newest season of Roseanne to the first episode of The Connors is just a continuation of the same thing. So
Are we going to assume Gordo has seen this show? Because I'm not sure with him, honestly.
I would think he has seen it, but knows little to nothing about the show.
Yeah, it's possible.
They should do a season of The Connors where it was all a dream and Roseanne comes back, but like the dream was so real that like Dan's really in love with his new wife.
It was an
Who
ambient
doesn't
dream.
exist.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, we'll
An ambient dream. That took me a second, Nick. Good job.
but yeah, so let's get right into it, right? So it starts with the intro, which you know, we're going to go by just the premise of our show is to ignore the future and everything we know about it. But the intro itself, pretty iconic. They've updated it from season to season. And from here, from episode 1 on, they've had to update it as soon as episode 2 because of a casting change. But so what we're getting is the whole cast, the family, is all sitting at a table in the dining room, kitchen area. And it's just a circular shot kind of going from face to face, spinning around. And you're just kind of sitting at the dinner table with them for a moment in time. And that's kind of all it is. With, as Joe gave us a little bit of earlier, some harmonica music and... That's the intro. Feelings towards it?
I mean, you can't. I can't listen to this for the first time. You know what I mean? Like nobody can.
Yep.
So it's tough to like give you a first impression of this because we've all heard it 1 million times. But I mean, I love it. Like, is this done by anybody or is this just like some sort of network TV stinger?
It's a blues musician. I forget his name now, but he's just kind of like a guy who was just like a musician and they like recorded the song for it. So he's not very, I looked up his discogs and everything and I didn't know him from much. I looked him up because if you remember in the ninth, not to jump ahead, but Nick saying the song doesn't get out of your head. In the 9th season, they change it to Blues Traveler and they add lyrics to the song. And now I can't not hear the lyrics when I hear it as well.
Right.
Maybe it was Dan on harmonica. He was in Blues Brothers 2000 after all.
He was, and then there's I hate jumping ahead to this, but there's also a whole episode where Dan was almost in Blues Traveler, and Blues Traveler plays live with Dan singing Sweet Home Chicago in the very end. It's so fucking crazy. That's also in the last season where they fight Steven Seagal on a train. Dude, the last season of Roseanne is a fucking fever dream that is like unbelievable to explain.
I mean, it was a dream in general, right? So, I mean, we won't get to it. Spoiler alert. Yeah, we won't get too into it. So yeah, from the intro, we get to the opening scene and we just see Roseanne and her son DJ talking. And again, we'll address it here. In the pilot episode alone, DJ is played by a different actor than from the entire run of the rest of the show.
Sal Barone, which is that Ray's dad's name?
Sal.
Is it Sal?
It
I don't think
sounds right.
it
I'm
sounds
agreeing with
right.
you blindly. I think I'm not 100%
What's
sure.
the dad's name on the show? Frank Barone. That's
Frank,
what it is.
Frank.
Yeah. I just saw Sal Barone, like this little
Went
kid
faster than
named
Google.
this little kid named Sal Barone is so funny to me. He looks like he should be running a sub shop in Queens. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all
exactly.
old men start as children.
Hey, take a number.
They have to work their way to old men.
But yeah, so I guess the reason they replaced him is just because after the pilot was filmed, when they were greenlit, they came back to film the rest of the season, and he was just way too old looking, and he was too close in age looking to Darlene and Becky. So they wanted him to be considerably younger than the daughters, and they didn't think it was going to work out because he was just, aging too quickly as kids that age
Really?
do.
And
Yeah.
I guess before we even really get too much further, roughly how old are all these kids supposed to be?
Darlene and Becky are either 13 and
8,
15 or
12 and
14 and
14.
15. Yeah, no, they're both. Darlene and Becky are both teenagers. I think they're like 13 and 15 or something.
Oh,
like
I
that.
pegged them
Darlene's
as younger. Yeah, I was watching.
I could be.
thought it
I
was-
could be wrong.
I thought it was supposed to be 6, 12, and 14, but the actor who plays Sal Barone is actually 8. And then there was a writer's strike. That's why it took so long between the pilot. So when they came back, he was like a plucky 10-year-old with a mustache because his name is fucking Sal Barone. And they're like, sorry, buddy, not going to happen. Also, apparently he got into physical fights with Darlene and like on the stage.
Oh, interesting.
That's
I didn't see
okay.
that.
New
The,
DJ's better anyway.
So I was gonna say, I think his name's Michael Fishman, plays DJ for
Yeah.
the rest of the series. I have not seen somebody on television who could act less than this kid can. And still be on TV for as long as he was. He is maybe one of the worst actors I've ever seen, and he's been on TV for fucking 30 years.
I
I
can't-
don't understand it.
I'll say this.
I defer you to Country Comfort, but
Well, they died after the first season. This shit kept going.
Without skipping ahead too much or too often in this episode, as a guy who watches the Connors, they use him very sparingly, and I think that is by design.
Yeah, because he cannot act. I don't understand it. Like, how did you never take a fucking acting class?
he was
something?
he was a child actor, and then the show disappeared forever. He wasn't really working, and then he came back because it was a cash grab.
Yes, but
we
he
did get to
still
see him though.
acted
If you
for
watch
10
Roseanne the
years.
whole run,
Yeah, I know.
you see him turn into like an awkward teenager, and by the end, they have to give him more storylines. He ends up, there's like a whole storyline where he ends up dating the girl who gets hung upside down and like bled to death in Hostel 2, which I think is the weirdest thing ever.
I thought you were talking about Roseanne. I was like, when the
me
fuck
too.
did that happen?
I'm like,
Roseanne.
I'm like, first off, yeah, it's like he's skipping
That
ahead.
last
but
season
then-
was very dark.
Again, season 9 was a fever dream. It was very strange.
But yeah, so Roseanne's talking to her son, and essentially it just starts off with his shoes in a knot, and she needs to untie it for him. And he asks if he can have pie for breakfast, and she says like, no, it's contaminated, which I thought was a weird response for that.
It's contaminated. She really puts on the Midwest accent in the first episode. It's so hard not to do it.
You can't do that this whole episode, or I won't be able to speak.
And then from there, Dan walks in, John Goodman, and he asks if there's coffee. And then she's like, isn't there coffee every morning? And he's like, yes. He has a very slow delivery. He's not like as much as the characters you know from the future. And then she's like, in the 15 years we've been married, has there ever been one morning where there hasn't been coffee? Like, no. Then why do you ask for coffee every morning if there's coffee? And then his response is there toast? And you can see her holding like a stack high of toast as she's asking.
You know what? One of my favorite things about this show is the relationship between Dan and Roseanne seems to bleed off of the screen. Like, you know, I feel like Roseanne and John Goodman had a lot of fun all the time because I feel like you can see genuine like laughter out of Roseanne anytime Dan delivers goofy lines like this, because she's laughing, and I feel like her character would be laughing too, but they always let it go, like, because they just seem so genuine. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it really.
They
It just
definitely have
seems like
good
a
chemistry,
yeah,
for sure.
chemistry is the word I was looking for, but
I agree with you, Nick. She laughs at this a bunch, and you're like, oh, she's really laughing. This isn't acting laughing. And she's not an actor at this point.
right. She
She's-
definitely just really finds John Goodman entertaining.
Right, but a stand-up comedian, they like your act, let's build a show around your act sort of scenario for this, right? So she doesn't have a whole bunch of acting experience, and she's great in it. Everyone else in this is really good because they're good actors. Roseanne's just good because she's charismatic and funny.
Yeah, I actually
I'm glad
had
you
it.
brought up the laughing thing, because I noticed that a lot throughout the episode. Not just her too, like her coworkers and stuff. Certain jokes that they all like legitimately laugh, and at times it bothers me. It doesn't bother me when Roseanne does it. It bothers me when other characters do it.
I definitely noted, and I was going to mention it later about her laughing because it does happen a lot. And yeah, you can tell she's inexperienced as an actor at this point. And because the show was developed around her, but she was, stand up before this. And
Right.
like a lot of sitcoms, kind of they find a stand up and base
Basically-
a show.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is I feel like it inadvertently adds realism to it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a real couple, like a wife would be agitated but still laughing at her husband's stupid thing, you know what I mean? Instead of just angry the whole time, like, like Ray's wife on Everybody Loves Raymond, who's just like a miserable shit the whole time. And
This show, the show has its flaws, but in a way it adds to the charm of the show that it wouldn't work on other shows.
Exactly, yeah.
So to leave like a non-acting smile in there and some of the little things that happen throughout this, it makes it feel a little realer in a way that if you were to inject that in Full House, a Family Matters, or something, it just wouldn't feel right. But here, it's a lot more, I guess, raw is the way I'd want to explain it.
Right,
So it is. I accept it on this show. It happens a lot on the show The Ranch, which I'm sure we'll cover someday, and it drives me nuts. So you're right. This is the only show that this is really acceptable, and it like fits really well.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, a weird thing about this too, and it comes up more and more, is this is the kind of show that we definitely had a different opinion on. I feel like you have a different opinion of this show as a kid when you watch it, and then you watch it as an adult, and you're like, oh shit, this makes sense from such a different angle than it ever did before.
For sure,
which is,
yeah. You can relate more to it.
Yeah. Or like back
it's
then
just-
you related to the kids, and now you relate to the parents, and that's a weird thing to kind of come at it from.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, we are getting older. Yeah, your perspective changed. I mean, that happened with a few shows that we've watched, going back and revisiting them. It's just your mind as a child versus an adult are different. So it's kind of nice when they have shows that can relate to the whole family because it does last longer. You can watch it, stays a little more the staying power for it.
If it makes you feel old at all, John Goodman was 36 when this filmed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me feel good.
I said make you feel old.
I was going to say, and you know, for those listening who are unaware, 2 of the 4 of us are 36, and the other 2 will be within the next few months. So that's actually pretty crazy, because even watching it, obviously he looks a lot younger than now, but I didn't peg him as my age when I'm watching it.
I still see him as an adult, and like I'm not, even though I am.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's weird thinking like if he's like, you know, later on in the episode, he's like, I was over at Dwight's having beers or whatever. You're like, I don't
Dwight.
think that 36-year-old John Goodman and 36-year-old us, he'd be like, get out of here, kid, you're bothering me. Like, it doesn't seem like we're the same people at all.
why does he talk old timey? Get out of here, kid.
Let me enjoy my cigar. But yeah, in any event, this is when one of the 2 daughters, Becky, shows up, and she's going through the pantry area, and she's trying to take some cans for a food drive that they're having, and they pretty much halt her, and they allow her to take 2 cans. And Dan was very adamant that she does not touch the creamed corn.
Dan apparently loves corn.
Yeah, because that comes up later.
It does come up later.
Maybe
yeah.
it's a Midwestern thing.
I mean, corn's fine. I don't have this like affinity towards it, but
No, I mean, I'm pro corn.
wah, wah. Yeah.
Actually, I don't blame him though, because I think a corn is not like a can of corn we'd buy. It's a
It's like
massive
a
Yeah,
gallon
tub of
tub.
corn.
yeah, we'll explore that a little
We're
bit
gonna
more.
get into that because I've got a lot of
Yeah, I
things
wanna
I'd
talk
like to
about it a
ask
little bit later
that
on.
scene.
And also, I did want to bring up just the set in general at this point, because so far we're exclusively in the kitchen dining room area. This house looks very lived in, and not in a way that other sets.
They
Dude.
try to make it look like that, but it ends up being like, we've discussed this before, like the shitty apartment is never really shitty. They did a really good job with this by making it look like a house that has 3 kids and 2 working parents. Like,
Yeah,
they did a
It's
good
still
job with it,
huge though. We've talked about that. Like it's a
Yeah, well,
shitty
they're-
place, but it's gigantic. Like,
They're like a middle class family in the suburbs. Like, they're not
Yeah.
like doing awful. They're getting by, but with 2 working parents. And
funny thing, the blanket they have on the couch, my grandmother had like the exact same.
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah, I think that thing made it
I
even
always
to the
noticed and
reboot.
remembered.
yeah, but just looking around, you see like there's dishes like in the dish strainer and whatever, and it just, I don't know. In a lot of other shows, they try to make the sets look lived in and not too model home-ish, but they never look quite as authentic. Where here it really looked like if you really like walked into that set and moved around, you would just feel like you're at a friend's house.
And you gotta wonder too, how much input did like Roseanne have in this? Because you have to imagine Roseanne is not, rich and famous at this point, right? So whereas somebody who's developing a sitcom now, say someone like, it doesn't even matter who, but
John
somebody who's been-
Mulaney.
right, who has money, right? And he's kind of lost touch with how he used to be and stuff like that. So maybe Roseanne herself was like, nope, it needs to look like this because maybe it's similar to how she lived. You know what I mean?
Well, Roseanne definitely was like lower middle class, growing up, big family, Midwest, right? So this is, and again, like you said, she wasn't super famous at this point. She would have done like a few like Rodney Dangerfield specials and sort of had like a.
Sign me up.
Just mention Rodney and Ferg starts laughing.
Grow
And
obsessed
then-
with your head.
We meet the other daughter, Darlene, at this point, and she enters by just walking into the kitchen and like slapping her brother in the head with a book, and then they just start
telling her
wrestling.
mom that he started it.
Yeah, it's like I get that like siblings fight, and listen, I've had my share myself, but just the idea of just storming in and just whacking him in the head with a book like that was a little aggressive, but I guess not uncommon completely.
I think at that age too, like those 2 are gonna fight that way more because they're so close in age.
And then
I'm not gonna harbor on it, child actors, but like sometimes they were a little over the top with the fighting. They're acting while fighting.
I thought Darlene was very realistic, actually. As far as the 3 children went, I thought she was the most seemed authentic. Darlene, played by Sarah Gilbert, who's, well, now they're all involved in the Connors these days, but
I think what helps is back then they were hiring kids the age of that they were playing. Whereas now you've got like 26-year-old kids playing freshmen in high school. And they just
hey,
have to
Screech. Hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, guys, I think we lost the plot on this
Whereas
one. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of these kids are playing their age within a year or so. So that definitely helps the realism, I think.
Except, of course, for Sal.
Sal.
Yeah, Sal's the baby from Roger Rabbit.
My stogie.
Come on,
but you know, you have to be careful, right? If you're going to do a family sitcom like this and you hope there's going to be some staying power, if your kids especially are too old up front and you're 5 seasons deep, kids age pretty quickly. Like that jump from 5 to 10 is very drastic.
Yeah, look at Stranger Things. They're all like, remember watching the first season, they're all little kids, and now like the newest seasons, they're all like young adults. And it's like, oh, you're not cute anymore. I'm not worried about you.
Like, we're going to hear about them being like in like sex scandals and stuff soon. You know what show that happened to a lot? This is a great example of it. Modern Family. Modern Family was like the first show in this age I can remember where it was like, look at these cute kids. And then within 5 years, every website was like, her fucking nipple fell out. And you're like, whoa, guys, chill out.
Jay was on all of them.
Just talking about little kids.
Whoa.
You know that's true. That shit was everywhere.
Modern Family, I'm sure we'll be covering very soon.
I love Modern Family. I just did not like the countdown from perverts worldwide being like, they're almost 18. It's like, everybody can just chill out for a bit. Can we just move on?
I always thought that it's like you've seen that on sites, and this is a bit of a tangent, but you've seen like literally like age countdowns on things, and you go, what is wrong with people?
Yeah, it is uncomfortable.
And it's guys that are like far older than us. So it's
some 64-year-old dude being like, I can't wait till that little girl's 17.75 because in some states that's legal.
Well, let's jump away from this. So anyways, the two kids are fighting. Roseanne breaks it up, and you get like Dan chiming in with a quick listen to your mother, but he's not actively. His kids are wrestling at each other 2 feet from him. He can't bother to stand up, and she starts pouring DJ a bowl of cereal. And did any of you guys notice it's just
she misses?
Well, not just that, but the cereal's called Odie's.
Yeah, I did see that.
And to me, I was like, sounds great.
But I bet you were.
And like
Basic
Becky
bitch.
runs up, and grabs some from the box. I think that's when it spills, because now it's like,
No, it spills when she pours, and then when she goes to pour into Darlene's after, that's when Becky reaches in.
Becky like sticks her hand in the box as it's pouring though. Like, so you're clearly making a giant mess.
Like, just to get a handful out and spray it all around. Later on, too, when they're having the fight at the end of the episode, she like goes put the groceries away and just flat drops a box on the floor in the kitchen and just keeps going. And then I was like, oh, she'll turn around and pick it up, right? It's like, nope, just that lives there now. Just blew my mind.
It's
Dang, if I didn't say I haven't done that.
So it's
Where
real.
that belongs now.
But even like looking at all that stuff, like the chaos of everything happening, the back and the wrestling, I guess it's tough to describe verbally to people listening how much is happening at once at all times on this show. Like, it's a lot of fast paced.
Very realistic.
But that's the thing, it's very realistic. It's not made to be a sitcom-y version of real life. They try to play it pretty real.
But if we could, put a juxtaposition up against the show we've already done, use like Home Improvement, for example, where the mom's cooking breakfast, the 3 boys are sitting at the table, everybody's dressed and like finishing up their homework and eating breakfast. Like, that's not real. Like, this is way more true to form.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's chaos. Chaos is actually what happens in the morning, not a bunch of kids like reading books at a countertop.
Yeah, siblings hate each other. Everyone fights.
Even look at the
popping up left and right.
The contents of breakfast. It was coffee, toast, and cereal. Like, there wasn't like this smorgasbord of bacon and eggs and stuff like that.
That is the best point, because it's so easy to just toss a bunch of bread in the toaster and the kids get cereal. And look, I made a pot of coffee. I walked away from it and like brushed my teeth while it was brewing. I don't have to be in front of it, right? Whenever you see these things where you ever make a giant breakfast before? You know how much time goes into making a giant breakfast?
On Christmas. Like, that's the only time I make a giant breakfast, like, for the family.
Yeah, it's great. It's amazing to have, but there's a reason that breakfast restaurants are a thing, because it's way easier to go to a place and be like, yeah, just give me one of all of these things versus me spending 2 hours doing it myself.
I find that too. When I make a big breakfast, when we're actually enjoying it, I'm always like, this wasn't worth the work. It really wasn't.
You know what I've discovered is put your bacon in the oven. Like, you don't need to do it on the stovetop. Put your bacon in the oven. It's going to taste the exact same.
I don't like the way it makes it taste.
I don't think taste test. I don't think you'd know the difference.
I did.
I'm with Nick on
It
this
had a
one.
weird burnt taste to it, and it wasn't burnt.
I can 100% see Ferg having a tantrum over the bacon being cooked in the oven and not on the stove.
Baked in the oven.
Spits it out.
I do everything stovetop.
Much like
Cast
not having
iron.
caffeine for a decade, I hadn't had real bacon in something like 6 or 7 years.
Because of the caffeine in it?
Yeah, because it just wired me. I couldn't sleep at night. But like when we'd cook, we'd use turkey bacon for things, and I actually really like turkey bacon.
I don't mind it.
I like turkey
So
bacon.
you have to
It's
eat
good
it-
in some things.
You have
All
to eat
things
it like
considered, it's
off
pretty
the
good.
pan, because it dries up so quickly.
or you like cut it,
It
up and put
burns
it into
fast
something
too,
else.
out of nowhere. It could be cooking perfectly. You look away for a
Yes,
second.
you walk away,
black,
it's done.
like-
There's no fat, so it just burns.
but
I was
I
getting-
do like the taste. I just think it's really ugly. I don't want to
It
eat
is flat and hard and weird, but I really like it because I have a weird obsession with foods that destroy my mouth. I don't know what it is, but like we'll make like a BLT and I'm like, make the bacon super hard and the bread as toasty as possible because I want to feel like I'm bleeding inside.
hate
And then
that.
and then
Cuts the
stick-
Joe shoving fucking Captain Crunch down his throat.
Yeah, I feel like it makes the flavor taste good. Like gets into your bloodstream faster. It's like a heroin thing.
Because it might be actually getting into your blood. Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like there's a certain point where you can enjoy like X amount of pineapple, and then if you continue to eat pineapple, you just cut up the roof of your mouth.
Wait,
Are
are you eating the outside of the pineapple?
Yeah. What?
No, I'm telling you, you have to eat a lot of it. But believe
How
you
much
me,
pineapple are you eating? How
It's
good are you trying to make
it's
your
a
cum
soft
taste?
fruit. How's it cutting
I'm
your
telling
mouth?
you. Listen, it's no secret that I can consume a very large quantity.
Yeah, have you
of
eaten a
things.
whole pineapple before?
I've bought like a cut thing of pineapple from the store that's 2 pounds of pineapple and ate the whole thing.
Was it 2 pounds of stems? Like,
Did I tell you guys recently I had 4 pounds worth of yogurt and fruit the other
Ew.
day?
You realize the secondary question of that was
You're
what was
poor
the next
plumbing.
morning like? Holy
Fine,
shit!
iron
4
stomach.
pounds of fruit and yogurt.
Iron stomach. What about that time you ate a bunch of sunflower seeds?
That was different.
Shell and all.
Not an iron
Shall.
butthole, just an iron stomach.
Oh god.
I'm really glad Gordo's not here for this conversation. He'd be losing his mind.
Yeah.
Snort. Hold on, I'll fill in for him.
But to go back to the breakfast, it was recommended by DJ that they had pie for breakfast. Again, he brings it up because he thought maybe Dad would be on his side.
And he
And
was, but he had to check with Mom.
Yeah,
first,
he just gives Roseanne the look, and she's like, "Tell him no."
I do love that mentality too. Like I don't know how I will handle having kids because of that sort of thing. You know,
Sounds like a good idea to me. There's
this kid's
also
onto something.
also going on at the same time was Becky's on the phone. Roseanne makes her get off the phone, and then like 2 seconds later, the phone rings again, and Roseanne picks up for her. And just goes, "Oh hi! I looked in the mirror and I'm getting boobs."
I'm getting boobs.
Show me dildo.
I definitely went Louis Anderson there. I'm sorry.
And I thought in the moment when she did that, I thought the gag was going to be that it wasn't her friend again. Because
I did too.
That would have
Yeah,
been great.
yeah.
Yeah.
there's no like caller ID or anything at that point, so she's just picking up and just blindly expecting it.
It would be her mom or her boss or somebody, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, her boss, George Clooney.
Dan, it's for you.
Greg Wellman.
Darlene now hands Roseanne a note from her history teacher telling her that she needs to meet with her after school today at 3:15. And Roseanne's like, "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" Darlene's like, "I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? Throw myself off a bridge?" She's like, "Yeah, and take your brother and sister with you."
Yeah, no bungee cord.
This was the joke that made me question something. Because I saw all these jokes coming, right? Would I have seen that joke coming had I not seen Roseanne before?
No.
For them to throw themselves off a bridge?
For the mom to have like that kind of flippant humor.
I knew that kind of retort was coming from Roseanne when she asked that question about should I throw myself off a
You
bridge.
wouldn't have known because before this show, that kind of like humor wasn't
Yeah,
on
that's true.
sitcoms.
It's
So
very-
before that,
yeah.
Roseanne would have gotten down on one knee and been like, "Now, Darlene, when school calls, it's always better if you tell us ahead of time." Like it was just a different. There's always that like moral of the story type of thing.
Thanks,
whereas
Dad. I
Roseanne was
never
just
thought
like,
about
"Life
it
is
that
fucking
way."
chaos."
I'm trying to think. So Roseanne was 88. When was Married with Children? 89?
It's either 88 or 89. It's within the same year or a year between.
Because those going to be pretty close to one another as far as
No, 87.
87.
Yeah, April
Oh,
5th,
wow.
87.
So Married with Children was first. Okay.
Yep.
So they were really they came before them as far as like that grittier style household,
I
but
thought it was after too. I wonder how much of an
They were
influence
they
it
were
had.
the grittier
a little more
like,
exaggerated though. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you look at that
Roseanne
family,
was very realistic, gritty. Like
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like not Roseanne, Married with Children is like, hey, if we take the humor of like Porky's and make it a family sitcom, whereas Roseanne is like, it's Porky's and it's family sitcom, but like it's actually a family sitcom. Like, you mean like Married with Children is like, it's about a family, but it's not. It's very rare that you're like,
you
this
you
feels-
don't look at the Bundys and go, oh, that reminds me of like my buddy's parents, or like that's like I
Right.
know a girl like her. Like that's not really what they are. They're a little
Al
more
buddy.
like a more cartoony version, of a family.
Yeah, it's like over exaggerated. It's like a Mad TV version.
Where Roseanne, you literally every single character that we've met so far is like somebody you knew at one point in time.
right down
Also,
to
I'd
the
like to say I
house.
meant Mad Magazine, not Mad TV. That would make no sense without that correction.
Yeah. And so the horn honks from outside, and DJ and Darlene run off to go to school. And now you got just Dan and Roseanne in the kitchen together, and they get into an argument, which I like. Again, it just aids to the realness. And it was about how Dan hates when there's like toast crumbs on the butter.
This is everybody who's been in a relationship has this conversation. Not exactly, but this roundabout thing, right?
Hey,
That you're doing
that's how
a thing
Reese's
I don't
peanut
like.
butter cups got invented. All right,
What?
that's how Reese's peanut butter cups got invented.
That is true.
Toast crumbs on butter.
Well, how come nobody has packaged the butter with breadcrumbs on it as a snack yet?
Ugh.
You could be the first.
Only 50,000 calories.
But yeah, no, these arguments are super realistic. But yeah, that is something that only comes with someone that you have a history with. You would probably unless you're like a complete lunatic, you wouldn't say that to someone you just started dating or anything like that.
Which is funny because I could see you doing that with someone you just started dating. Yeah. Fucking crumbs in the butter. I'm out of here.
I would probably.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was dating a fucking savage.
I could see myself maybe making a comment, but not like I would probably try to make a joke out of it before I had a serious debate like Dan's having in this moment.
I remember one time we had to do an inventory thing at work where you had to be there at like, 4 in the morning or whatever. And no coffee shops are open that early. So I went and like got a coffee maker and bought a ton of coffee and was like, hey, I make coffee for everybody. And the girl, one of those girls we worked with, like, when the coffee is halfway done, you can like pull the pot out and pour a cup and it'll keep going. She did that, and it just like was this kind of argument where I was like, who the fuck raised you? Nobody else has even gotten to having it. You think you can come in here before it's even fucking done? And people would like pull me away. It was like, Joe, what's going on? It's like, I don't know. I'm so mad right now. And now if I see anybody pull the coffee before, I get like PTSD about it, or I'm like, this is like a MASH scenario happening. I can't handle it.
Joe getting hot coffee in the face.
It's just like, fuck.
What I liked about this argument too is Roseanne doesn't see where he's coming from or why it's a big deal. But when he goes, well, you hate when there's jelly in the peanut butter, and she's like, yeah, that's just sickening. Like, so she does have the same type of things that bother her, but when it's on your side, you don't see it.
I don't know so much if it's an argument or just having like a witty conversation, like back and forth.
It wasn't like a super serious fight or anything,
that comes
but
later. But like,
yeah, but he wasn't kidding by bringing it up. He wanted to make it known that
he's always smiling, even with like delivering any line, he's always smiling. Like,
and there's always resolve that's happy, right? Because it's like I love you, darling. Like, they don't stay mad.
Yeah, and that was after her resolve, which was to just cut a giant chunk of the butter off and hand him the rest of it. But yeah, they do that southern thing with one another afterwards. And I wanted to point out, I don't know if any of you guys caught this, but depending on what take they were using, you could tell it was multiple takes because Dan is at a different variable of how sweaty he is.
Yes, he's
So
always very sweaty.
There's some takes where you can literally see like the sweat rolling down his face, and then it will cut away again, and then it's like he's fine. So depending on, I don't know how hot the stage was. I mean, Dan's a bigger guy, but he was so sweaty at certain points, but it was inconsistent because they were using multiple takes.
Those lights are probably pretty warm.
I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Oh, I
It'd probably
bet.
fry you.
And I sweat pretty easy myself, so I can't imagine I would be in a different situation. But
Yeah,
usually
I run
you'd
hot
have
as it is.
people on set in most cases running up and like patting your face dry before a new scene. And then the horn honks again. Like, it must be a different car for Becky. So I don't know. Maybe Becky's just old enough to be in a different school as the other two because she has a separate ride.
Was it a ride? I felt like with the kids it was the bus, and
Yeah.
with her it was a friend.
Oh, maybe. I didn't.
But it
I
could have
didn't
been
think
two
one way or
buses
another.
too.
Yeah, maybe it was the friend she was on the phone with super early in the morning.
And she's all excited to see her boobs.
Yeah. What?
'Cause
Oh,
when Roseanne picked up the phone and said, "I got boobs," this isn't getting weird.
the friend's driving over to see them. Well, moving on. This is when Roseanne tells Dan about how she needs him to fix the sink. I guess it was clogged up and he was going to just plunge it out. But she's like, no, I need you to actually fix it this time. And as this conversation is going on is when Becky runs through because of the horn honking for apparently, as Joe suspects, her friend wanting to see her boobs. And she tells Roseanne that her backpack fell apart, even though she just got it a day ago. So now she needs Roseanne to run to the store and get a new one for her by the next day. So Roseanne's like, to Dan, can you meet with Darlene's teacher after school? He's like, oh, I can't today. He's like, I'm putting a bid on a job, and if I get it, I have to start doing construction this afternoon. He's like, well,
It's
what
a very
about the
quick turnaround, by the way.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, you got the job. Running back right now.
Like, if you get stock, like, you find out he's a drywall guy. Like, I mean, I imagine you have some drywall stock with you, but like most jobs like that, especially if you're kind of a living paycheck to paycheck, you know, you're not going to have like 50,000 pieces of it in your driveway.
Yeah, you do
garage,
the appraisal, you get your deposit.
I don't think he was gonna. I think he couldn't do it because he had to prepare for the presentation to make his bid.
No, he
don't
said
think-
they were going to start construction that day if they got the
Yeah.
bid.
Okay.
And the bid at that point is just look around and go like bingo, bango, bongo, $4,000, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, maybe it's the reason it's the same day. It didn't. It seemed like a pretty shady business. It didn't seem like they were like, on the up and up.
I will say I looked online and people do have, you can buy the Four Aces drywall hats that Dan wears on the internet, and I'm very tempted to buy one.
Oh, now I am too, now that I'm aware of it.
All right, we're going to have to get one for everybody. Make a note of that.
I know, if you'd said something beforehand, I'd be wearing one right now.
Well,
So
I
now we're
fucked
gonna
up.
have to do the Connors. So Roseanne's like, okay, well then can you at least do the book bag? And he's like, well, no, it's either gonna be that or the sink. She's like, all right, fix the sink. And I just thought, this is pretty typical of a standard household around these times, I guess, where a lot falls on the mom. And I don't know if we even gave our own moms enough credit for how much running around they had to do back then, but Roseanne's working a full day and now she has to leave work. She has to go to the school. She has to run to the store, change the bags, be home, take care of the kids, make food. There's a lot on her. And Dan really is not willing to contribute right now.
I will say this. If you think about it, I'd like to think that we were all, knowing us all pretty well, we were all had pretty decent relationships with our parents. But there were times we were probably absolutely like abhorrent nightmares to our parents.
Yeah, all the time.
You watch this and you're like, oh God, and it was all for nothing. And why? Oh, you feel so bad.
That's the perspective of being an adult now watching the show.
Yep.
Speak for yourself. I was an angel.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Ferg.
As he's saying that, by the way, his mom's sliding a thing of cookies under the door right now.
The can of Pepsi just rolls across the screen.
But yeah, I know.
Pepsi and cookies.
As all that was happening, I just felt for her because, like, I'm a pretty busy guy myself, and I'm just like, I'm getting stressed out thinking about all the things she needs to do today.
And also that, I'm not very good at fixing sinks. I'm not very good at plumbing, so in this situation too, I'd be like, no, I'll do the plunger thing, but we're going to keep doing that until this gets bad enough that I have to pay somebody.
We're going to do the plunger thing
an
until
option.
we can never do the plunger thing again. Yeah.
I mean, how else do you fix a sink? That's like the issue.
You know what the worst part about that is? You don't buy a second plunger for this. You're using the toilet plunger in the sink.
Yeah, I mean, there are sink plungers, right? The plungers you get that are like bells almost?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Those are sink plungers.
I just thought it was a fancy plunger.
Yeah,
No.
I just thought that somebody was like, this design hasn't changed in 2,000 years.
The opening's smaller for the sink.
No lie, I had a conversation with someone earlier via text where a plunger got mentioned, and that's when I realized there's a plunger emoji. I was like, wow, they really do make like emojis for everything, huh? How often is that needed? But here I was today using it. So
That's why it's there. It'll come up.
You're welcome, Jay.
And so yeah, she kind of gets into the, all right, I'll do everything like I always do. And, I'll get out of work an hour early, and gives him the whole spiel. And it turns into like a more playful conversation with like, are you sorry we got married? Every second of my life. Me too. Are you really? Nah, me neither then. It was like a sweet little, they wound down from that really quick.
When we watched the episode of Mad About You, and there's like the whole like more, and you're like, oh shit, that felt so real. This scene to me felt so real. It's just like offhanded comment of, you're sorry we get married every day of my life. Like that's literally wife and I banter constantly, right?
And then Roseanne gets in the conversation with Dan about who he thinks he would marry had they not wound up together. And she's like very infatuated with the question. She's joking, but she wants to know. She's like, oh, I know, it's Beth Winchester. And he's like, no. And he's like laughing, and she's prodding him. And finally he's like, Josephine Carter. And she's like, what? Josephine Carter? That old slut?
For some reason, when I wrote my notes down, I wrote that as Jimmy Carter. I don't know what state of whiskey I was in when I watched this the other day, but now I'm just picturing John Goodman and Jimmy Carter. Like, oh, hello there, Dan. Who wants a peanut? Like, my brain is fucking gone.
Also, rookie move by Dan. Never answer that. That was clearly a trap.
You know what the hard part about that is? They went to school together. They know all the same people. He can't even lie and be like, oh, probably like Connie Smith, You're like, oh, who was that? Be like, oh, we dated, but she had a double nose.
Worst case, you make a joke or pick like a TV celebrity or a movie.
You always just go with Andy Griffith. Everyone's just like, okay, I guess. And then you just start whistling and the joke's over. You can move away from it. No fights.
I shot him.
He gave such a specific reason why too, because of her toes, because the way she would sit with her foot crossed with her her flip-flop dangling over her foot or whatever. I was like, oh, all right.
It's like your old coworker there you were talking about the other day.
Oh,
I'm not going to say names, obviously. But
were we talking about that on the show or otherwise?
The dick
I don't
guy?
remember. We're not going to get into it.
We're not going to get into it except for the time that he said he'd buy us all underage kids booze if the girl we're with would show him his feet. And we all, as terrible 17-year-olds, were like, yo, take your shoes off.
We're not going to get into it, but we're going to get into it.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave names.
I didn't mention names of anybody involved.
So anyways, she's like, so you were going to marry her for that? The toe thing? And he's like, yes, ma'am. She's like, okay, well, why didn't you? And then he gives a very detailed, well, the morning I was going to propose, I took her over to this little coffee shop, a real quiet, out-of-the-way place. And just as I was about to propose, she smeared toast crumbs all over the butter. That was it. I got up, I left, I didn't even pay the check.
I love that wraparound.
I love that too. He does a great callback, and he also he does a really funny voice as he's doing that. He gets into a real funny character.
Yeah, he got a little stern towards the end to make it known. And that was the close of that first scene. Then we get to Roseanne at work is the next scene. We get an exterior shot of Wellman Plastics. And we start off in the break room, and that's where Roseanne tells her boss, hunky George Clooney,
oh boy,
that she needs to get out an hour early today. I actually forgot he was on the show. So this was new to me again watching it.
I think he was really only in the first season.
He comes back a few times.
Yeah. He was only 26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Handsome as the day is long.
Man, this is before ER, right?
Well, the original, there was that comedy ER that he was also on, but he did that before this.
Okay.
And this would have been the first time he worked with John Goodman pre Oh Brother Where Art Thou.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I never put that together. Yeah. We thought you was a toad.
A herny toad.
Good for him at 26, working up the corporate ladder at Wellman Plastics.
The treasure.
But as of bigger things, the Facts of Life is really the only other thing he was in big enough before this.
At this point, yeah.
Oh, he was actually in the Golden Girls for an episode.
Girls.
Wellman Plastics is hiring.
So, anyways. Yeah, she tells her boss she needs to get out of work an hour early. He says that they can't because they're 200 cases behind on some order. I don't know exactly what it is that they make. All I know is they deal with plastic. So 200 cases is a lot. Is it cutlery?
I can see both
Yeah.
their sides, by the way. It's like you're supposed to feel bad for Roseanne, but that's her job.
Well, you know what though? It's a legitimate reason, and she does actually need to get out.
It's a
But
last second thing.
But yeah, there was no warning. But we've also in our lives at different
I
places.
know, chaos. That's why I said I could see both of
It's
their sides.
not even just
like,
that, but like we've all worked with people who take advantage of situations like that and exaggerate how often things like that come up and do
Yeah.
whatever they can to get out of work. So as the boss, he's dealing with all different types of people. So for every Roseanne that legitimately needs to get out there, there's also someone else who works, in the same job who's constantly finding excuses to leave early. So who knows?
And he also, presumably single 26-year-old guy, doesn't
doesn't
have
get it.
the bandwidth to understand why she needs to leave. So it's a tough sell for her just on that alone.
Right. So he's telling her, here, we're a winning team, and he's trying to make them a winning team. His name's Booker, by the way. And he's using this sports analogy, and he's talking about how all the players are equally as important, and the running backs are no more important than the pulling guards. And Roseanne tries to give him like a non-sports example, talking about the old quilting bees, which is what'd you say? It's a bunch of old barefoot women on a prairie who make a giant quilt together, and they all just make a patch each.
And neither is more important than the other.
Yeah.
Is
And
a pulling guard a regular position in football?
You're not listed as the pulling guard.
Okay, because that didn't. I mean, I'm admittedly not knowledgeable about football, but that was like, wait, what the fuck's a pulling guard?
That flagged me too, and I was like, I like didn't call attention because I didn't want to have to do the research to know for sure. But I don't know.
I didn't either, so I guess we all fucked up there.
Yeah,
but
I don't know that to be like a normal position unless that's
S1E1 pod on Instagram. Let us know what the fuck a pulling guard is.
yes.
If not, we'll just Google it.
We'll Google it eventually.
I won't. I'm literally waiting for like.
Yeah, our go-to Google guy is not
It's
around
a
today.
blocking player in American football who leaves his usual spot in order to pick up another assignment on the opposite side of the field, running behind the other offensive lineman to sprint out in front of a running back and engage in a defensive player before the initial width of the offensive line.
So
Yeah.
so it's something that you do within a play, but that's
read
not
that
your
all
like
in one
specific
breath.
position. That's something.
Yeah, it's definitely still a thing. They just don't call it that.
Yeah, you're not like on the team as like, my name's Greg Aikman, and
Thank you.
I am the pulling guard on the team. But
A water boy.
yeah, so they come to a
Only
compromise.
needle dicks play pulling guard is basically what you're
Yes.
saying.
So Booker says, listen, I'll let you leave a half hour early and it's going to come out of your pay. So she's like, well, there goes my Porsche.
When the marathon bombings happened, I worked like right next to it.
Me
Like,
too.
pretty close to where it happened, right? So we're downtown, everything's going to hell. I'm getting texts from people being like, there are bodies. And you're like, oh my God. So I tell my boss, who is a close friend of mine, hey, I'm getting out of here because the city's on fire. And his response to me was, yeah, just like put it down in your timesheet that you left early. And I just started laughing so hard. It was like, dude, we don't know what's, because no one knew what was happening yet. It was
Priorities.
just like, there were just bombs happening. It was like, okay, I guess I will lose the hour of pay. Fine.
On the contrary, I got overtime that day because I had to fucking go there.
I was going to say, I assume you were not going anywhere, yeah.
I feel like, to go back a second, Roseanne wasn't that thankful. He says you can leave a half hour early, and she's just sarcastic. She doesn't even say thank you.
I feel like it's hard to be thankful. Like, I feel like she in real life, she is thankful, but then she's just kind of not happy that she has to leave work, lose money, and still go see her kid's teacher. Like, so she can't muster up the proper to be like, thank you for that. She's just still like, oh,
She's stressed out about her day, yeah. And now because they are in the break room, she goes and sits down to finish the rest of the break with the other girls who work there. And they just kind of get into a conversation about how, I love it when guys use sports analogies. It does something to me. The only thing that's more exciting is when Dan talks about hydraulic jacks and snow tires. And then her friend Crystal's like, you can joke all you want. You got yourself an ideal man. And it's like, I do anything to get a man like Dan. He stays home. He never runs around on you. He's good with the kids, and he's hygienic.
Crystal is by far my favorite Roseanne character of all time. And every time, these early seasons or this early episode, just like her character, it just, I don't know, it's like makes me smile. Like, I can't
She's just
see
so
her.
aloof.
Yeah,
She really
it's just
does love
perfect
Dan,
casting.
by the way. She eventually dates, marries his dad.
She does, and there's also a great episode later on where in the first season where you find out that her first husband, who did run around on her, which is the reasoning she's so upset about that, fell into a bridge pylon while he was making the bridge, and now he's encased in concrete forever.
And did she deliver it as like deadpan as she does every line in the pilot episode?
No, that's a very emotional episode.
I couldn't get
But
past
still
the way,
very funny.
the way she said hygienic. I just couldn't get past it.
Hygienic.
Hygienic. And then Roseanne explains, do you think he came that way? And that it took 15 years of fighting. And then she grabs like a donut off the serving plate of donuts, I guess, that they have readily available for them.
That's pretty good perk.
Yeah. And she's like flicking sprinkles off essentially to say, you know, all the things that you have to take away. She's like, first you got to take off all the stuff his mom did to him. Then you have to get rid of all the macho crap. And then that they get from the beer commercials. And then her personal favorite, the male ego. And she takes like a big bite of the donut and all the girls go wild. They're very entertained by this.
I was trying to think of beer commercials at this time and to be like, okay, so like what macho thing was happening? And literally all I could think of was Spuds McKenzie. And I love the idea of Roseanne being like, every time that fucking dog comes on the commercial, Dan gets all riled up.
I'm a man, damn it.
Spuds McKenzie can play a guitar, so can I.
And then the
R.I.P. Spuds McKenzie. I'm assuming that dog is long dead.
You also just confused
Yeah.
half of our audience.
Well, if people
Google
don't know who
it,
Spuds
you know?
McKenzie is, it is worth a Google.
Yeah, go look it up. The YouTube exists. And so the whistle blows, and I was like, is that still a thing? Like that typical, hey, breaks
I
over.
thought that was like
Very
a Flintstones
Flintstone.
whistle.
Like
yeah.
a steam
Yeah.
whistle, yeah.
Well, John Goodman went on to be Fred Flintstone later on.
See? Full circle.
Viva Rock Vegas, baby.
He's not in that one.
He's not in that one, which is good for him, 'cause that one's so bad.
Yeah,
He's
so,
basically in the Flintstones movie that's essentially the TV show Dinosaurs,
yes.
which is essentially better than Cavemen.
Well, we'll find out eventually.
Guarantee.
But so everyone scatters and gets back to work, except Roseanne, who I guess does not flinch very quickly when she hears the whistle blow. And that's when her sister comes over, Jackie.
Hey, sass.
Yeah.
By the way, Jackie's hair. Like, I know
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
90s
Yeah.
hair, but Jesus
Wow.
Christ. It looks like a wig.
It did look like a wig. They both have like kind of a perm situation going on, but Roseanne's a little bit more believable. Jackie's like looks like you could just plop it right off and set it down. And Jackie's telling her about the seminar she went to, see it and be it.
And this is like a big thing, right, going on at that time. The whole like snake oil salesman of like, you go to a hotel lobby, you pay $50, and somebody tells you how you're going to make $1 million, and people just fall for it so hard.
Not just at the time. Those things still exist.
They very much happen now.
I guess they
more
still
on the
exist,
internet, yeah. But yeah, basically it's she's explaining everything to her, and it's the whole, if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it. It's like, it's a good line, but
Oh,
yeah.
wow. What's the guy's name? Is it Tony Robbins?
Tony Robbins?
Yeah.
It's a very Tony Robbins
God,
thing,
yeah.
yeah.
Back off, banana hands.
as she's telling her about this seminar, they walk from the break room to the main working area, and I thought it was really weird. I don't know if you guys noted it. So they go to like the side area, and as they're walking, the camera's moving with them. But for these kind of sitcoms, there's not a lot of cameras that move with you. So it gave the show a whole different feel
Yeah,
for that
it
one
opened it
shot.
up.
Much bigger depth to it, yeah.
All of a sudden, it felt like a movie for 10 seconds. It was like really strange.
There's like cameras on a track moving to a different room in the factory,
Yeah.
instead of like one static shot.
It was like, it really, like, it threw me off for a second. And as they get back to the main working area, Crystal hears this conversation. And this is when Roseanne's like, oh, sis went to another one of her seminars. And then Crystal's like, well, maybe I should go to one of them. And Jackie's trying to push it on herself. And she's like, you really should go. It'll change your life. And Crystal's like, I've loved to change my life.
It's the best line of the whole episode. Delivered so well.
Yeah.
And it goes back to like what you get by, visualization. And she's saying you got to use your mind's potential to get anything you want. And you want a brand new car, all you have to do is visualize it. And then Roseanne starts talking about all the things she's visualizing, which are a clean house and kids who don't talk back and a husband who waits on her hand and foot. And she continues on with, And we're all getting in Crystal's brand new car, and then we're going to drive up to this beautiful mountain road and go to the countryside to visit my sister who's in the nut barn.
Isn't it weird that nut, when we were kids, is like a very common term for a crazy person? And now I feel like no one says like, oh, that's nutty, or like, oh, we're going to the nut barn.
I don't know.
If
I
it
feel
has
like
any correlation with the rise
Yeah,
in
because
peanut
we're in our
butter.
30s and we call people assholes now.
But I don't hear anybody else saying it. So is Roseanne. She's in her 30s. And she's not like, well, go visit my sister in the asshole barn.
I wonder
Just to be fair.
I wonder if
So
nowadays
let's let it go.
things have like, because there's such like an added like attention towards mental health stuff, maybe it's just less common for
I don't
someone
even think
to
it's
call
that.
each other
I think
nuts.
just speech changes over the years, you know?
Yeah, but I wouldn't-
People don't say rad anymore either.
No, but like, are you nuts?
Joe
Isn't like,
says rad, I
it's
know.
not a dated term to say, what are you nuts? I just think that, I don't know. I think maybe people just, where mental health is such a thing, it's like, it slowly slips away and it's like less a thing that people bring up. But I could be completely wrong.
No, like I said, I just think speech changes over time. I know what you're saying with that because there's plenty of examples. I just don't know if that's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think it's just weird you don't hear it as much.
Yeah. We don't say groovy anymore either.
That's
Yeah, but
tricky.
again, nuts it's not a dated term. There's not like a new version in lieu of saying, what are you nuts? There's not like a new one.
We should work on that. Let's see if we can replace it. Well,
Yeah,
I think the problem is, like I was saying earlier, like nuts are, when we were kids, if you forgot your lunch money, they were like, here's a peanut butter sandwich.
What
If
are
you
you,
go to a
almonds?
school now, they're like, I brought in peanut butter. They're like, call the fucking police.
Get down!
Yeah,
Get
you can't
down!
have that now. So the nuts have been sort of, I mean, they killed Mr. Peanut last year.
He came right back.
Well, the outrage of people like us who were like, you must bring back the monocle man. I cannot eat peanuts with a different character on them.
Oh, but if you get mad at the green M&M, you want to bang it.
Well, maybe Mr. Peanut and the green M&M were having a little thing on the side, and there was an issue. And to be fair, what would that make? The best kind of M&M, peanut M&Ms.
I concur.
There it is.
I've had this debate with someone.
I like playing him.
No,
It's
I
like
would,
me playing. It's gonna be like I like once a year when they make marshmallow ones. It's gonna be something nobody.
no. Listen, I'll say this. This is M&Ms are the one situation where I'm not a big fan of the plain version versus other ones. I had this debate with someone recently about
I
peanut
like the
M&Ms.
pretzel ones a lot.
That's what I was gonna say. I love the pretzel ones. That's like my go. If they're all lined up in a vending machine, I'm probably gonna buy the pretzel ones first. But I do like the peanut ones.
I don't like the caramel ones because I think they put too much caramel on them. and
I
it's-
agree with that 100%.
They're too caramelly, yeah.
Yeah.
M&M's does a lot of like limited release kind of flavors, and they miss more than they hit on a lot of them.
We literally have like a big jar, like a glass jar with a lid that we leave in our kitchen that has M&Ms in it at all times, all the way filled up, almost like Kevin from The Office. And the way we do it is we do 2 peanut and 1 regular, and then you mix it all up. So when you go and get a handful, you get a little combo of both. It's fantastic, and they change the
do a
colors
better
every
mix.
season.
Don't mix plain with peanut. You're only gonna taste peanut M&M.
No. You say that, but the extra chocolate on top, it really works. Take a handful one day.
I
I'm
can't-
not at your house. I'd be afraid to get Skittles.
I was
You will
gonna
get
say.
Skittles.
Get Reese's peanut butter cup.
To be honest,
Reese's
I feel
Pieces,
like
I mean.
every time there's a new season, the M&Ms change their colors. So for like the spring, they're like Easter colors or whatever, right? You know, at Christmas, they're whatever. And I feel like the fact that they do that, the colors are always off just a little bit from what a Skittle is, that I can't sneak it in. So
Growing
everyone
up,
kinda wins there.
for a while, we used to have like a candy dispenser that would always have M&Ms in it, and my mom was like, we were always one holiday behind because she would just buy a bunch of them after the holiday on discount. So like right around now, we're recording this episode in March. This would be when our M&M bowl was full of like red and pink ones from Valentine's Day that went on discount.
That makes you realize too how cheap it is to actually manufacture candy. When they're like, here's 25 pounds of M&Ms for 49 cents. And you're like, you're probably still making a profit somehow on this.
Yeah. The next scene is now, it's the after school scene where Roseanne has to visit with the Darlene's teacher, Miss Crane, who
Oh my god.
it starts with her like, so we start in the classroom and Roseanne's not there yet, and Miss Crane's just stretching at her desk, which I thought was a really weird way
yeah,
to
I
start.
feel like
She's
we
getting
missed
ready
something.
to she's getting ready to play racquetball, so she's stretching. She says so. to Roseanne. That's why she wants to cancel it.
Yeah, but you don't stretch an hour before you play. You stretch when you get there.
She's getting ready to leave to go play.
She's also wearing like one of those long pencil skirts that's super tight where like I don't think you could stretch in that without ripping it.
She also looks 16. I can't believe that's a teacher.
I thought about that a little bit, but then I was like, well, Darlene's really young, so it's not uncommon for a teacher in like those grades to be in your young 20s. Like that happens.
Yeah.
She could be 25 or 26 and be just out of
Right.
actually even earlier because back then I'm assuming in 1988 you did not need a master's degree to be a teacher. You know what I mean?
Not in the younger grades. No, it's not until you get to a certain point where you even need that stuff anyways.
No, I think now you do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my sister had to get a master's and she teaches 3rd grade.
Oh, well.
But I think in 1988, considering some of the teachers we had, some of whom were great, some of whom I was like, you didn't go to school for this, right? You know, I'm assuming some of them they're just like, oh, are you a warm body who can command 7-year-olds and you went to 2 years of school? Fine, just go.
What I thought was weird is so when Roseanne first walks in, Miss Crane gets on her right away for being 15 minutes late. And she's like, oh, I almost gave up on you. And Roseanne's like, oh, sorry, I had to get out of work early and there's traffic. And she's quick to be like, I think we should probably just do this another day. I was like, wow. Like, and what was funny to me was when we get to it later and you see what the conversation was, it's a minute of dialogue.
It enraged me, Jay.
Yeah. It's like
enraged.
You wanted to wait you wanted her to come back another day to have this 30 seconds of conversation.
Yeah. Just for that. I don't think so, Tim.
Because that's when she says she has another engagement and Roseanne sees the bag of like the gym bag. She's like, oh, what are you going to play tennis? She's like, oh, actually squash. She gives this like really weird like smile when she asks if they can do it another day too. Like she was almost being sarcastic towards her.
She's so weird. I didn't like this at all.
She had a really weird like vibe to her. I couldn't really explain it because I know she wasn't being sarcastic, but it read that way.
I think she's just like pretentious and she's judging her because she doesn't like which kid is it? It's not Darlene. Right?
No, it is Darlene.
Yeah. She doesn't like Darlene, and she even the conversation later, she said it's problems at home, so she's already judging her. So I think she's just being a bitch, you know.
I feel like this woman, all of her auditions that past month were like 80s office sexy lady. You know what I mean? And then she came into this and they're like, play teacher. And she was like, okay. And then she played it as like an 80s office sexy lady. And they were like, yeah, it's a pilot. Who gives a shit? Yeah, we'll just move on.
She's like, ready to like seduce some like.
Later, we'd be like, she's not playing squash and she's mean.
She's thinking she's going to be like sexy teacher to like a young dad who walks in and then you get Roseanne like, what do you want?
Yeah, it doesn't work on me.
And then
why do I keep going to Louis Anderson?
I think
Louis Anderson.
I think every time I try to do Roseanne, I'm more like Mama Fratelli or whatever when I'm doing it. So
it's wet, isn't it?
Owen, you don't have a cousin Larry.
And then so they're gonna have the conversation today, and she tells her to have a seat. And I like this scene because they pan out and it's Roseanne just looking at a desk that there's, for those of you who know Roseanne Barr, she's never been a slender woman and there's no chance she could fit in that desk. So she just sits on top of it. I can relate. I couldn't fit in that myself.
But I mean, also too, maybe Gordo could, right, out of this whole crew. But I mean, like, it's those, you try to sit in one of those, I would try to sit in one at an antique store, like antique mall. They had one and we were like, oh, it's like when we were kids, and you try to maneuver and your hips just can't do it.
Yeah.
All I could think about,
even when we were in school, I couldn't fit in them. I would try to get up and my legs.
All I could think about though was how easy it was to crack your back in those. You just push off.
Oh my
desk.
God, yeah.
It felt so good.
Now we all have bad backs though in our 30s, so maybe it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
We sit all day in chairs that they're ergonomic, and you're like, I don't think so, because I feel miserable.
So now that the conversation's starting between Miss Crane and Roseanne, the issue with Darlene was not something I expected. Was this something you guys would have pegged as a reason to call her in? Darlene,
I would have expected it if I didn't know so much about the show and know Darlene.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like her just like generally being shitty in class or whatever. I didn't know it was gonna be specifically barking.
Yeah, so she's been barking at Miss Crane, and I like how Roseanne's response was just, "Did you tell her to stop?" And she's like, "Yes." Did she? Yeah. So what's the problem? Like,
like I said, that it made me so mad. Couldn't she have just called the house too? She didn't make her come in to tell her that.
She's just
And the fact that she did stop, it's like, all right, so you don't need to inform the parents. Like, case closed.
Yeah, is it a habit? Like, did she come in and do it again the next day? She did it once. He said stop, and she stopped. Yeah. Listen, my parents were called by teachers many times over my school career. If they had done it for every little thing like this, they would be on the phone every day.
I feel like this is, again, though, the teacher being so young that she's picking her battles because she's like, I can affect change. Whereas, like, at that point, you're like, you've lost them. Just let it ride and try to make them not serial killers.
Yeah. She's getting too involved. Like, for something as simple as this, she's like, well, listen, I think this is a deeper issue here. Like, maybe with what's going on at home. How much time are you spending with your kids? It's like, you're really overstepping here. And she's like, I don't have free time. I have a job and 3 kids. She's like, well, I think that's the problem. And Roseanne's like, I think the problem is there is no problem. And
right on, Roseanne.
Yeah, and also, like, what balls? Oh, I think that's the problem. But like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you understand how my life works?
Yeah, do you know how bills work? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like Roseanne's like, man, my schedule at home is pretty loaded with these 3 kids. If only I could find a way to escape and go to work for 8 hours a day, that would really lighten the load.
And also, this is wrong and super shitty, and I wish it would change, but teachers get paid very poorly. So this woman is being like, I don't understand what your bills are like. It's like, but you also work at a job that is unfortunately paid less than it should be. You should be more sympathetic to this woman's plight.
And especially then, in like 1989.
A middle school teacher in the late 80s, I'm assuming not the best situation.
Yeah,
and
like Mr. Belding and work at that ski resort in the off season.
I like that it closed out with her saying, your daughter barks. And Roseanne's like, our whole family barks. And then, so now they end up back home, and Roseanne's following up with Darlene. During it, while she's trying to talk to Darlene, you get like the most typical cartoon noise coming from the other room. Yeah, I don't know if it was specifically that, but yes, somewhere in that realm. And she yells to the other room to turn it down, and it stops. And I don't know, that really flagged me. I was like, did that need to be in there? Like, you couldn't find something a little less fake to insert in there?
It was also very Mean Gene, the way she said it was very much the like, put that cigarette out, the way she yells, turn it down. I don't know why that's what I thought of.
And then, she's like, well, you're barking in class. She's like, yeah. She's like, well, what'd you do that for? And Darlene's excuse is basically that Miss Crane is so boring that if she doesn't bark, she's going to fall asleep in class.
So she calls her Miss Crane the Pain, and I was like, what a juvenile thing to make fun of somebody with a rhyme and then spend 20 minutes being like, I'm going to make fun of people with rhymes. Like, just keep doing it still. It's like the adult version of that now is to do like the, like Mrs. Crane the Pain. You're like, oh, you got to find a way to mix their 2 words together. That's the adult version of doing that now.
And Becky walks in during all this too and is asking about her book bag. So Roseanne hands her one, and Becky's very upset because it's blue, and apparently she's going to be harassed at school over this.
Did anybody just think that, like, my immediate thought was, like, that high school must be rough because it is overrun with Bloods and Crips. Now she's going to school that it's going to be, and Roseanne has no idea why she's so upset, but it is
Mom, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like, I cannot wear his bag,
Ma. The Lanford, Illinois fucking gang life is
it's like
pretty
in the
shitty,
mirror working on the hand thing all day. Like, fuck, this is going to go so poorly.
And, like, I get that if she was coming from the angle that I'm a girl, I can't have a blue bag. But I think she was wearing blue throughout the whole episode, so I don't understand why it was such an issue.
Gang lines, man. You don't cross them.
And then both sisters start fighting because they're both in mid-conversation with their mom at this point, and now they're fighting for the attention. And
I just assume because it's Darlene's a Latin king. She's just got a stake in a totally different thing.
Yes, most likely. Roseanne tells her to stop and says and tells Becky that she's going to use that bag until she's 30. It's like, oh, and great.
Again, the adult in you is like, imagine buying a backpack and having it from 15 to 30. Like, what a great product and what a good investment that is.
A solid East pack.
I always brought my backpack to school for like the first semester, and then I never took it again.
I take a backpack to work. I bring a backpack to work every day now.
Yeah, I bring a bag with me pretty much all the time.
I am a backpack. Excuse me. I'm a backpack connoisseur. I buy backpacks way more than I should. I take different ones every day. It's awesome.
I just got one I really like, and I stuck with it.
Yeah, you got that Timbuktu, don't you?
I've got a Bailey Works.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Joe Buck too.
Nick,
Lifetime
do you
guarantee,
find Nick? Do you find that your efforts to stylize with different backpacks goes noticed? Does anyone ever go like, "Ooh, I like that bag"?
No, nobody ever sees
Hey,
me in
there's
these
Nick,
backpacks.
the backpack guy.
Like, it's usually I usually just leave it in my car, or when I would go into the office, I would take it with me. But it's just for my own, personal joy.
I mean, they're very handy, especially in the summertime where you're like, well, I want to bring for me, it's mainly water bottle, right? Like, I want to bring my water bottle with me everywhere, and you don't walk around holding the stupid thing. So put it in your bag.
Because you
and
want to
then-
go other places and annoy people with your water bottle.
Yes, I do.
It's like his jingly belt in high school. It's just like reimagined itself as a water bottle now.
Can we talk about how no teachers would ever be like, take that belt off because it's annoying, because they were afraid to admit that they were like, please don't wear that sex belt in school, the same way that nobody else we knew who were adults would mention that I was walking around in a sex belt all the time, and just like nobody would claim to understand that. That is something I was thinking of the other day, where it's like,
Sitting
I guess
when
that's
like
weird.
whenever we had like classes together, I remember anticipating, because back to the desks that we used to use, like those marble countertop chairs, you know what I'm talking about? They were like some sort of granite that were attached to the desks. You sitting on one of those with that belt was like nails on a chalkboard for me. And you're just like, sit down on it. I'm like, how is he sitting on this for 6 hours a day? I never understood it.
I have caused, literally, no joke, irreparable damage to my tailbone. Sometimes I will sit for like 5 minutes and be like, yeah, that's from sitting on bullets for 10 years, you idiot. You broke the bone in your asshole, you fucking idiot.
But boy, did I look cool.
Boy, did I look cool. Walking around like fucking 5-foot Rambo for some reason. I look so cool.
So, anyways, Dan walks in and starts the dialogue with Darlene, where Darlene's proudly telling him how she struck out Mark Winstead 6 times, and he's like, "Yeah, I saw it on the sports page." He's like, really took the wind out of her sail on that one. She was so excited to see her dad and tell him.
He goes into immediate fuck with you mode, which is really funny. He like deflates her and then starts picking on her.
Yeah,
He is so full of energy in this scene. It's crazy.
because then he was like, "Yeah, I heard something about him being your boyfriend," and she's, again, she's a young. We talked about her age. I think she's got to be like, I don't know. I can't peg her.
12-ish.
I even that looked old for her, but even at that point, it's still a little like the relationship stuff's a little young. I don't know. I think it's a little younger personally, but anyways, yeah, she's like, "What? He's not my boyfriend." And he says, "You always strike out the ones you love, Mrs. Winstead."
This is great too. He does so many fun voices. Like he can just break into like Mrs. Winstead for no reason. That voice means nothing, but it's so funny and it clearly drives her nuts.
Yeah, well, she's like, "He's not my boyfriend. I can't stand him." And she runs off as he's doing the KISSING thing. So he's now he's alone with Roseanne, and he's like, "Oh, did you get any beer?" And it's on the counter. So he's like, "Hey, it's warm. That's all right." He just jumps up on the counter and he
I thought
starts
that was
drinking a
funny.
beer.
I love that. Yeah.
Knowing the kind of beer that they're drinking, like that standard, like, warm.
Like a Bud Heavy kind of thing. Like,
Oh, it's domestic American Pilsner, baby. Like
Yeah.
the other day when Kelsey brought home beer and I was like, "Oh, did you get beer?" And she's like, "I did. It was warm." And I went, "All right." And I had one. This scene like legitimately happened where I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna have a beer. I don't care."
No, there's no world at my age that I'm going to drink a piss warm, like that kind of beer.
High Life is a very drinkable warm beer.
no, it's not. It's not
Yes,
even
it is.
very drinkable cold beer.
No, High Life is good. I like High Life. My
Thank you,
mom,
Nick.
my mom has always been like a
Natty Light, right?
yeah. She drinks like 2 Natty Lights after work every day while she's just hanging out in the kitchen. But if she doesn't refrigerate them, she'll throw ice in it. I'm like, "Ma,
Whoa.
just put them in the fucking freezer for a minute or something like that. Don't put ice in your already shitty beer. It's disgusting."
Probably dulls down that disgusting taste.
Yeah, it's not great.
Has
We
she
were in
ever
Canada
ventured
a couple
off?
year-
And
Natty Ice, not Natty Ice. It's Natty Light.
Natty Light.
Natural light, yeah.
And like if like we're out at a restaurant, obviously they don't have like Natty on tap or anything.
Like, can I have a Natty Daddy, please? Could you bring one of those to the table?
She just the simple light beer. That's all she like the Bud Lights and stuff.
She orders a Natty Light. They go and they take a Bud Light and pour it through a shoe. There you go.
Yeah.
Excuse
I like
me,
that
waiter.
idea though, because like, you know, when you go to a restaurant and you're like, "Can I have a Coke?" and they're like, "We only have Pepsi. Is that okay?" Like, I really want to know what the like other side of the "Can I have a natural light?" Like,
Yeah.
we only have Milwaukee's Best. Is that okay?
Excuse me, I noticed you didn't have any King Cobra on the menu. Is that available in the back?
What is the malt liquor? Can I do a malt liquor list?
So Roseanne asks why the sink isn't fixed yet, and he's talking about how he's going to get right on it, but then he gets distracted. He's like, "Oh, check this out." And he shows her this hand-carved figurehead that he got, and when his boat's finished, he's going to slap it right on the front.
Full credit. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I'm pro the.
yeah, I
pro the
wasn't
Viking
against
head.
it. And he's like, "Yeah, I can't believe Dwight was going to throw this out." And that's when Roseanne realizes that Dan did not have work today and had the whole day off. So he ended up at his friend's house helping him fix his truck when he could have helped out with the school meeting, the backpack thing,
Yeah.
the sink.
I totally sided with Roseanne in this.
Oh,
by
of
the way.
course.
Like, he totally bailed.
I
and just
I
drank
sided
beers.
with Roseanne, but if you really think about it, this is what is it, late '80s? They did when he didn't get the job. He couldn't call her on a cell phone or anything to say, "Hey, I can do all this stuff" or anything like that.
He could
He
call
really
her
didn't
work.
have a choice.
There's probably, yeah, he found out before the workday ended. So there was probably ways around it.
Also, is this back to the boat? Is this like a trope? I feel like you see this a lot, like the just building a boat in the basement or the garage or
It's
something.
like it's just
that.
always the
Yeah.
guy has a
Like
project.
Home Improvement, it was the hot rod. And
Yeah.
then this
Yeah.
it was a boat.
Digging a pool, I also feel like is a good proxy for this.
Well, that's
too.
Encino Man.
buddy.
This is
fully sure.
so so Roseanne obviously, and with good reason, is pretty pissed off when she finds out that he didn't work, especially when you realize the day she had and how much running around she did and how she had to haggle to get out of work. And the sink's not fixed yet. So it's not like he worked all day and then was going to
have
fix
definitely
it.
come home and done that.
He could have at
Yeah,
least
smart
done the
man.
sink.
Smart man would have had one less beer, come home, fix the sink, and not mentioned at all that he was out drinking beer and just been like, "It didn't work out, but I did
Yeah.
fix the sink," and no argument would have happened.
Right.
And he should have come home sad that he didn't get the job.
Right.
Yeah.
That sympathy. Get
That,
that
hey, I had the
Roseanne-
best day ever. I got to help my friend work on his truck and I got this cool piece of wood.
How was your day?
From
Worked on some
Dwight.
metal, got some wood.
And then Roseanne's like, just sit there and drink your beer. I'll fix the sink. And the hell you will. Apparently, this was a big sticking point to him. So he was like, fixing a sink is a husband's job. I'm the husband. And it's like, again, I guess the world was different then. I mean, these roles exist to a degree now, but things have all kind of meshed in a little bit more. And I can only imagine, and I'm a single man, but if I was married and the person I was with was like, "You know what, I'll fix the sink," I would never be like, "No, I'm a man, I'm going to fix it." I'd be like, "Nice, go ahead."
That's one thing I remember on the show as a whole. Like Dan was always this lovable goofball, but when he got mad, he was scary.
Yes.
He was always
Yeah, they always bordered
fire
on
in
the
those
line
eyes.
of domestic issues.
Yes.
Like it was right before the cops should get called is where they stayed.
Yeah.
I remember there was later in the series, there's a scene where he fucking flips out and launches the living room coffee table across the room, and I'm like, oh my god, Dan's gonna
Throws a
kill
bunch of stuff on the
someone.
lawn, like the couch on the lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, John
If they
Goodman.
lived in a duplex, the cops would be getting called all the
Yes.
time.
Oh yeah.
Can someone do a quick Google about how tall John Goodman is, just to put it in perspective? He's a big guy. He's a heavy
he's gotta
man,
be
but
like
he's
6'4".
tall.
He's listed at 6'2", but
Really?
I mean he's probably walking around 6'2", 350. So
I mean,
Right.
I'm 5'11". That's way over me.
and that's 6'2" barefoot if he's wearing boots or something like that. Now he's 6'4".
And he's next to Roseanne
boots
Barr,
are
who's
giving a
not
couple-
Yeah.
the thing is too, he's very portly too, so he's
Yeah.
just a massive man.
there's
on
a
the
lot
whole.
of human being there. And so they get into this big argument about it, and this is when Roseanne starts yelling back about how she spends 8 hours a day at work and then another 8 hours working outside of work. and she still has to get all these things done. And as they're arguing, Darlene runs in and just asks where the tape is, and she just turns around real quick and says it's in the bathroom third drawer, and she runs back off and then
Yeah.
Roseanne gets right back into
I
arguing
love
again.
that because how hectic her life is. She knows where everything is. Like she's
Yeah.
on the ball for everything, despite how crazy everything is.
Oh, to this day, like, you know, I'm an adult, and like my mom still has like a laser focus on where anything would be at all times. It's just like, oh, where are the nail clippers? And it'll be in some asinine weird spot, you know?
Is it weird to you, anybody else, though, that there's tape in the bathroom?
I thought
Like
that
Scotch
it is
tape?
weird for sure. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
think
it was
about
like,
that
should
in
be
the
in like
moment.
a junk drawer.
I mean, the junk drawer's full.
Maybe she meant like athletic tape.
Well, you see that she's working on like a art project, so I assume it's Scotch
Oh,
tape.
yeah. So they continue arguing, and Roseanne's like, you don't do anything. And again, Dan, he's more elevated this time. He's like, whoa, hey, I do plenty around here. And,
Mike, why?
yeah. And he's like, clean the gutters.
Man, they
And-
keep playing some commercial every night when I'm in bed that's like, the new gutter trap. It
Yeah.
goes over your gut. I keep being like, I want you in my life. So I totally get his point
Yeah.
in this scene.
But yeah, so Dan sits in, because he's like, what's the point here? And she's like, there is no point. So he goes to sit down at the table and he's drinking his beer again. And then she runs up to him and she's like, the point is, and then gets into you think this is the magic kingdom where everything, you know, just fixes itself. Poof, poof. You know, she mentions dinner's on the table and he's like, you want me to fix dinner? I'll fix dinner. And he's pretty aggressive here. This is like
Yeah,
what
this
you were
is
talking about
scary.
earlier. He's super angry at this point where you're like, it's almost taking a turn. The show, like we said, does a really good job about being realistic, but here it was like, okay, is he gonna hit her?
He's stuffing her body into the unfinished
Yeah.
boat in the garage.
And then
And covering her in all the excess cream corn because
Yeah.
no human being
that's the thing, yeah.
could eat that much cream
So he
corn.
goes right for the corn, the one can that was off limits for this can drive that Becky had, and the thing of corn is how big? It's like a gallon size can of corn.
It is the king of cans. It is the biggest can I've ever. It's a paint can of corn.
It's like
yeah,
the
maybe
kind,
a little bigger, honestly.
yeah, like when I used to work at the supermarket when I was younger, like, and we had salad bars, you'd have these giant cans of like, for like garbanzo beans and stuff, like things like that.
Yeah, but I would like assume that like at like a soup kitchen on like Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
that's what they
or
would
something
do.
Yeah.
you might find in Dwight's shelter.
Yes.
Yeah, that is like stores. That's like in a underground in a beet cellar or something.
And that's the thing is you can't, when you open up a canned thing of corn like that, you have to use it all.
Oh, it's
can't-
over. Yeah.
You can't save the rest of the can for a later date. I'm like, what is this?
They're big people, man. They can eat a lot of corn.
But there's 5 of them, and granted, Dan and Roseanne are bigger people, but the kids are tiny and they're children. Like that's so much. If the meal is only corn, I guess sure.
Can you just imagine a family of 5
bowl of cold
just all sitting there, yeah, eating bowls of corn like it's cereal?
Yeah, it's oh god. For some reason, I see them putting sugar on it too.
Yeah, and even then, when he grabs the corn, she's complaining, well, then I'm going to have to wash all the dishes after you make a mess. And he's like, hey, I do the dishes. And he gave a very specific Thursday, 6:45 p.m. And she's like, 1970 what?
It's so fun doing the voice. But
you fixed
dinner 3 years ago.
As they continue arguing, this is when you hear Becky yelling from the living room to call them over because, as she says, Darlene cut her finger off, which obviously was a little bit of an exaggeration. She didn't cut her finger off, but she did cut herself with the pair of scissors.
Pretty substantially. You see how bloody that rag was?
It was pretty bloody. I also too. She yells, "Get a tourniquet." I don't think I would have known to request that at that age.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny that she told her that, and then Roseanne says to shut up. So even seeing that your
Shut
daughter,
up, honey.
yeah, even
Shut
though
up, honey.
Yeah,
You're-
the honey is great.
your daughter cut herself, but you know you're like as soon as you realize she didn't cut it off, you're like, okay, we're fine. So there's no nerves at this point. They've seen it all. Dan picks Darlene up, and he sits her on the kitchen counter next to the sink. And she's doing I think she was doing a pretty good job of playing hurt here for a child actor.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think this was believable enough for a TV show that you weren't like, she's faking it.
I think as far as child actors go, this show was great. I mean, I've said it before, child actors can be fucking terrible, but they did a great job.
Dan first says, you got to keep it over your head. And he's like, try not to think about your finger. Think about something else, like a flower. And Roseanne's like, a flower? And he's like, all right.
A weird thing to be
think
like,
about a real
how about
pretty
a flower?
He's like, he's just having a hard time, I guess, connecting to his daughter at this point, who's like, plays baseball and stuff. She's not like
she's a tomboy. You wouldn't think that.
She's not a girly girl in that sense, but he's like, think of a really pretty flower out in the middle of the field with the sun shining on it.
You know what I always assumed with why she's like that is they had 2 girls to begin with. So they probably at that point thought they weren't going to have a son. So he treated her like a boy until DJ was born.
He was like, hey, look, basketball.
And then Roseanne interjects because the flower thing is not working. And then she's like, think about when we went to the demolition derby. And then she's like, well, what about it? And she's already starting to calm down. And she's like, remember that yellow station wagon that got clobbered? And she's like, yeah, that was neat. And she's like, she's already just down now. All this pain and nerves and all the worrying about her finger is starting to go away because she actually is, visualizing this demolition derby they went to. They're talking about how some guy got sandwiched into a wall, and then Dan joins in and starts talking about Ricky Tornado.
When he said that name, I was like, Ricky Tornado is a wrestler from Alabama in 1983 that I love, that you all make fun of me for loving. That is who Ricky Tornado is completely.
Well, stop 100%. Loving people like Ricky Tornado.
I will never stop loving Ricky Tornado and his partner, Greg Hurricane.
Ricky Tornado is a champion in Mid-South for years.
Joe, show us your Ricky Tornado tattoo.
Dude, fuck, that's the next tattoo. I'm just going to get a Ricky Tornado tattoo.
Yeah,
we were talking about an S1E1 tattoo. There it is.
I'll get a Ricky Tornado tattoo.
All right, we're working on this.
And then, so now she's pretty calm. And the whole time that they're doing this, they're working on her because Roseanne brought out the first aid kit and they're tag teaming this whole thing and getting her fixed up. And before you know it, they're done. And they're like, oh, you're all set. She's like, really? Like, I didn't even feel it. So she's good to go. Now she walks off. And now there's this kind of awkward moment because they were just in the middle of a heavy fight. Got distracted because they had to do parent duties. That's over. And they're just like staring at each other because it's like, do we get back into the fight now? Like, what are we supposed to do here?
It was also to like point out too that like, at the end of the day, they're good parents. They prioritized their injured kid over their stupid argument.
They instantly snap into team mode where she's distracting, he's treating after she got the thing and stuff.
So then it goes into are you hungry? Not really. Great, I'll fix dinner. And then
but we don't know if they had corn, and that drives me fucking insane.
I feel like that corn's got to be for like a barbecue. There has to be a reason.
I feel like they could still be eating that corn.
Yeah. But I don't know if you guys
2022. They're like, why did we buy such a big can?
Did you guys note when they did the thing where he goes to now he's gonna walk off and work on the sink while she's doing dinner, and as they cross paths, they do this like little subtle handhold like thing as they pass each other that I thought was a really sweet moment. I don't know if
it is very sweet and very subtle.
Very much there.
I also love how he immediately goes and like he just starts plunging the sink. You can see him from behind, just like working it.
But she doesn't want it plunged. She wants it fixed.
And then there was a that was the end of what was like the normal episode, but there's a very long credit scene. So I guess it's not quite the end. So now we
very
cut
erotic.
to that night where Dan's
Did
working
the
on
sex scene at the end.
Yeah, then there was a very long sex scene, and it was like full penetration, which I did not expect for ABC at that time, but good on them.
From behind.
Keep going.
Show me dildo.
And then
I'm coming corn.
Yeah.
I want to laugh and I'm grossed out at the same time.
Yeah, just that one little extra. And
That's
then
what I'm here for.
So anyway,
call me the Colonel.
So Dan's working on his boat in the garage, and it's just like a big wooden frame. Like it's not a lot going on.
Am I the only one that didn't expect for it to be a wooden boat?
Yeah, I thought he would have bought like a motorboat that he was just like fixing up.
Fixing up a motorboat.
Yeah, he's like
saving the motorboat for later.
Yeah. Dan. But yeah, so he's working like on making a Viking ship for himself apparently.
These are
Roseanne
ribs,
walks in.
right? That's the term, I think, right? This is like the ribs of a boat.
I don't know for sure. That sounds right to me, but
Joe,
I'm
we're not
speaking out of turn.
seamen. We don't know.
Dan, more sea.
We all were at one
Jay,
point.
get through this before Joe ruins
I'm
it. please.
trying.
Come
I'm
on.
trying. It's unraveling at the end. But so yeah, Roseanne walks in, hands him a drink, and Dan's getting into this long conversation about how when they're retired, they're going to be cruising through the Caribbean on it. And she's like, I'm not getting on this thing. And he's like, it'll be great. And there's this nice little shot where it pans out a little bit and you can see them kind of rocking on it together. And he's just kind of going over the dream and saying how great it's going to be. And they're going to spend their last years together and like sailing through paradise. And she's like, this sailor stuff really turns you on, huh? He's like, absolutely. He's talking about how there's nothing more romantic than drifting in the open sea and be all alone together every night, cuddled up in bed. Moonlight dancing on the water every night will be a voyage to ecstasy. And she's like, you're turning me on. He's like, I am? She's like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, what about
It's
the...
not satirical.
And he's like, what about the sink? Anywhere you want. I was like,
Your voice now, I've gone into Louis Anderson territory. Your voice is going into the Chris Farley when he's the Gap Girls or whatever.
lay off me, I'm starving.
These are
funny?
good.
You know what I thought about too is Dan's building this boat and he wants to sail the Caribbean, which means after he's done building this boat, he has to drive it somewhere 2,000 miles to get it to
Yeah,
a body
the
of
Caribbean's
water.
not near Illinois.
No, it is not.
Well, I don't know if the dream's going to be like, and then we're going to set sail in Lake Erie, you know?
I also,
Oh my god, what a long, cold journey.
yeah. I also,
Also,
don't
not that big of a boat.
Yeah.
they
Right.
ever
Small
talk about
boat.
Dan liking boats again after this.
I was gonna
Like,
they
bring
do.
that up.
Yeah.
They like
Like,
never
they-
mention a boat again.
No, they do. The boat carries on for a while because there's a whole episode where he buys a bell for it.
22 minutes of that?
It mainly though, he really gets into
Half of it.
motorcycles later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's
motorcycles.
nothing
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
he does.
He's
He-
always fixing motorcycles on the ground.
When I think of him, I think of motorcycles first, for
Right.
sure.
I think the boat is maybe just first season. But I think they
Perhaps.
keep it on the whole first season because there's a whole story arc of him going in the garage to twiddle with it. I think they realized it made way more sense for him to mess with motorcycles.
Living in Illinois, yeah, probably. First off, the what about the sink line, as they're discussing where they're going to have sex, apparently. So he didn't finish fixing the sink, apparently, right?
He plunged it first. Now he has to let it sit, and then he'll get back to it.
Well, I imagine one of them will be sitting on top of it and there will be some suction.
Ooh, I don't want to visualize that.
I don't want to visual. I don't want to hear that.
Ew.
It's all the
Dan.
leftover creamed corn in the fucking.
Dan, my butt's
disposal.
stuck in the sink. Pull me out before the kids come.
Rosie, don't turn on the disposal.
Ah!
We have degenerated so hard tonight. It never happens this badly.
All right, well,
It usually happens early. And then
yeah,
we
no, we've
better
reached
at the
we've
end.
we've reached the end of the episode, and we're unwinding a tad.
A tad.
Yeah, well, so that's the conclusion, the final conclusion of this episode. So
I'm
yeah,
crying.
as far as Roseanne goes, before we get into the green light or cancels, all I'd really want to touch on again is just how realistic this show really felt compared to other sitcoms. Like even now, sitcoms have changed a lot and they're filmed differently. You don't get this kind of stationary camera stuff as often these days, but even with the more realistic approach towards shooting shows, they just don't have that authenticity that
Yep.
this show really had.
I think the closest thing to it would be, I get a similar feel from maybe All in the Family. The kids were older, obviously, but there was still a lot of that chaos. The house wasn't like this amazing house. It was just a lived-in home. Edith did everything. Archie argued with her about everything, and that felt real. I mean, and that was one of the a great show. So I think to be close to that is good.
Yeah, I guess the only real difference is when I think of Archie and Edith, I think of those characters as a little more cartoony, a little more exaggerated.
Yeah, I think that's probably a product of the
They-
time, being
they're like-
30
they're-
years before that.
Yeah, there's a lot of foundation and reality with them, but this seemed the most like authentic that I can think
Right.
of off the top of my head.
There's a lot of All in the Family sex jokes too, so it does relate. Oh, Archie!
Edith,
Stifle
dear.
yourself, Edith.
And I don't want to get into too many. I really don't want to get into like a heavy spoiler alert because there might be someone listening to this who's never watched Roseanne and is going to watch it. But so I'm just going to leave it at this. If you're a fan of or want to start watching Roseanne or All in the Family, in both cases, prepare to be super depressed at some point towards the final episodes.
Yes. Yeah.
But we
It's
won't.
very dark.
But we won't get too into that. So let's just unless anyone else has anything they want to add on, let's get into the green light or cancels.
Sounds good to me.
So we're going to do this as a 4-man. Gordo might be recording one and adding it in. So you'll either hear that or you won't, and you'll just have to wait for the graphic. If it comes down to that.
We don't even know.
Yeah, we don't know what he's going to say. So if it comes down to it, just be sure that you're following us on Instagram at S1E1 Pod on Instagram, which you can find on S1E1pod.com if you need the link to it, if you can't figure out how to use Instagram. But give us a follow there, and then a few days after this episode is released, then you'll see that graphic show up, and you will know how he voted.
Or
But as
tune
far
into
as
next week's episode and we'll tell you. Tune in.
yeah,
Huh?
do that. I mean, we don't usually tell you what we did the week before, as you might have noticed at the top of this episode. We didn't reference last week's, but listen next week anyways. That's what we hope. We hope you find us, like us, and continue to listen. But to get into the green light or cancel, I'm going to start in the order I see you in. Ferg, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, there's no timeline on ever created where I will cancel Roseanne. Show's great. After watching all the different sitcoms with the the TV dad, the TV family, it's just something you can relate to. I mean, I'm not exactly that class, but that's more Americans can relate with them than they could with the Tanners or the Cosbys. And it's just realistic humor, realistic fighting. Life's chaotic and the show's chaotic. Perfect show. Green light from me. Boom.
Nick.
Yeah, I think echoing on what we've said a few times during this episode is just the realism to it is really genuine. You can feel it in the episode. They did a good job with all the chaos like we spoke about. They made that feel real too. The characters are all lovable. You can like we said, we resonated with the kids when we were younger, and we have no problem resonating with the adults now that we're older. So it hits on multiple decades worth of watching. I don't think that my knowledge of the rest of the show contributes at all to my green light for this. I think this is just a really good pilot as it stands alone. So yeah, it's a green light for me.
Joe.
Yeah, pretty hard to disagree with what you guys said. And if I had to pick one show, 'cause look, I love The Office, I love a lot of these shows. If we one day said, hey, we're pivoting and we're going to do a podcast about one show, episode per episode, I think the most fulfilling would be Roseanne. It ebbs and flows, it goes up and down, and I really feel like it's the only show that speaks to me the way, as a kid, as much as an adult. Other shows, you'd be like, oh, I kind of get this more now as an adult, but Roseanne, it just hits in a weird way where you're like, oh, they wrote this for 10-year-olds, and then they wrote it for 30-year-olds, and that's kind of crazy that you can stick with it and not feel dated or, it's not with you anymore. So it's a big green light for me. I love Roseanne.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with you guys and greenlight it, but I will be completely honest. As I watched it and towards the end, I was heavily debating which way I was going to go. I really wasn't sure for a little while. And the only reason I almost canceled it was there were points where it's so chaotic and real in this episode that it was overwhelming, and it was almost stressful because I felt like it was so relatable and I was in the moment with them that it wasn't an escape from reality. It's just watching normal life, and I was stressed out thinking about schedules and all the stuff that they had to do. So that was my only negative watching it, was that, but ultimately I love the show, and I don't think it's just future knowledge that's making that decision. But I really did like going into that world. It was super just a day in the life. And I don't know, I think there's something to be said about a show that you could really see yourself living in that world, and not in a fantasy way. It makes the characters so much more relatable, so you are invested in them in a different way than if it's something that's so not grounded in reality, and you just kind of you enjoy it, but it doesn't hit home as much. But yeah, so that's it. So that's 4 out of 4 from us. So regardless of Gordo's vote, it's going to be a green light from us. So yeah, that's it. Congratulations to Roseanne. You live on to see episode 2. So that's it. The only other reminder, make sure you go to S1E1pod.com. Again, that's the link to everywhere we can go to listen to us, anywhere where to follow us on social media. So make sure you give us a follow there, interact with us, comment, let us know what you like and don't like about the show. We're always adjusting. Suggestions for future shows you might want to hear, let us know those. We like to hear those too. And rate, review, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. But anyways, that's it. That's all the time we have for this week, guys. Tune in again next week for another new episode. Thank you, guys. Hey, yo. Good night.
I think we got the best Tom Arnold.
I think we got the best cream corn.